I want to talk to you about the simple past. I'm going to explain to you all the different aspects of the simple past. Number one, what you must know. You must remember that this is a standard-based classroom, which means that we're going along with a content that is state-based. As far as the simple past goes, we're talking about ML2 1A 1B, which implies how to talk about the past using the simple past. What we are going to see today is all the different ways of using the verbs in the simple past in Spanish. First of all, we have the simple past as being regular. When you talk about the regular simple past, you're going to number one up here. Now, when you talk about the simple past as being regular, you have to remember the golden rule. The golden rule tells you that you first go to the infinitive of the verb. I repeat, the infinitive of the verb, which is the basic form of the verb. And then once you get there, you drop the last two letters of the infinitive itself and you replace them by the appropriate ending. As you can see up here, I have the three types of verb groups that we can find in Spanish. The AL verbs right here, the EL verbs, and the IL verbs. Now, it's understood that the ending of those verbs is going to change based on the infinitive related to that ending. Okay? It all goes together. For instance, if you take an AL verb in the likes of caminar, caminar, you're talking about an AR ending, which means we're going to have to use the AR endings of the simple past. Now, I'm going to take caminar and I'm going to demonstrate to you how to conjugate the verb itself. First of all, you drop the last two letters of the verb right here. Okay? That's the first thing you do. Then once you have dropped those last two letters, you're going to add the endings that match the verb group. The verb group is the infinitive, if you want to put it that way, is AR. So, those endings are going to be, repeat after me, A, aste, O, amos, astes, aron. Okay, you take caminar, you drop your AR, and you're going to apply those endings to the stem. And this is what happens. Repeat after me. Caminé. Do not forget the accent on the E. Caminaste. No accent. Caminó. With the accent. Caminamos. Caminasteis. Caminaron. Now, the principle that you apply with the AR verbs is the exact same principle that you're going to apply with the ER and the IR verbs. You will then use your ER and IR endings. One thing that you must realize first, that's going to make your life a lot easier. The endings of the ER and IR verbs are similar. They're exactly the same. I want you to repeat after me. Follow me. You ready? Okay. Iste, yo, imos, isteis, hieron. Okay? Likewise, if you have an ER verb like comer, it will go like this. Repeat after me. Comí, comiste, comío, comimos, comisteis, comieron. So this is about, when we talk about the regular simple past, one thing you must remember, it's a little trick. When you look at the first person singular, the yo form, and the third person singular, note that you will find an accent. One thing that is good to remember is that when dealing with the third singular, he or she, you're going to have the accent on the O. With the ER and the IR verbs, you're going to have EO. But you still got an O showing up here, which means that the accent follows through right with the O. Okay? Those are little tricks that will make your life a lot easier. So step one, you want to talk about the simple past, you're talking about the action that was yesterday. The key word is yesterday, okay? We've been talking about the regular simple past. Now I want to take you into the irregular simple past. What do we mean by the irregular simple past? Well, we're relating to verbs that are irregular. See, the first the first point that you saw up here with the regular simple past relates to verbs that are regular. Verbs that will have the same endings based on their verb group, based on their infinitive. Okay? Now, when you talk about the irregular simple past, it's a whole different ball game here. You're talking about verbs that are one of a kind. They are each one of a kind. Each and every one of them is just true to itself, which means you have to memorize it. This is where you have to sit down and take the time to look at them, analyze them a little bit, and then memorize them. This is the trick. Now look at this. The verb ser and the verb ser, my bad. The verb ser and the verb ir both mean to be. Okay? So, we have two different meanings here, and watch this. And we have pretty much the same spelling applied to those two verbs. Now, ser means to be, ir means to go. As you conjugate those two verbs in the past, you're going to see that the spelling remains the same. Repeat after me. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, and fueron. Okay? So what's going to make the difference when you use them? Well, you've guessed it right. The context of the sentence. Okay? Look at the next verb that you have here. The verb hacer means to make, to do. Okay? Well, in the simple past, this is what it's going to be like. I want you to repeat after me one more time. I'll go slowly. Okay, so no panic. Alright. Hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, hicieron. Okay, all the C's that you see across the verb sound like a S. And the trick here is that you have to remember that with the third person singular, when you say hizo, even though you have a Z, it's going to make the sound ese, like S. Listen one more time. Hizo. Let's say one more time just so that you can understand what I'm saying. The spelling changes, but the sound remains the same. So if you speak to somebody, you'll be looking good. But if you have to write it down, you're going to have to remember that you have a Z showing up here with the third. Okay, that's tricky. So one more time, come on, let's go. Hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicisteis, hicieron. The next one here is going to be the verb dar. Dar means to give, and in the past is going to be, repeat after me, di, diste, dio, dimos, disteis, and dieron. Likewise, you have the verb ver. Ver is going to be, repeat after me, come on, you can do this. Vi, viste, vio, vimos, visteis, and vieron. So as you can see, point number 2 emphasizes the irregular simple past. I know it sounds big, but it's not that big. All that you're talking about here is a group of verbs that are irregular, as opposed to the first point that we made up here, where the verbs were regular. Now it gets a little bit trickier here with point number 3. When you talk about the car, gar, and zar verbs, you're talking about verbs that have zar, car, and gar endings, such as almorzar. Well, you know by now that almorzar means to eat lunch. Okay? What's going to happen with almorzar is that it's going to have an irregular yo form. In fact, every single one of those verbs, almorzar, sacar, and pagar, are going to have an irregular form in the yo form, in the I form only. And every other person, as you conjugate them, will be a regular stem. Of course, you will apply your simple past endings, those regular simple past endings. But note that the irregular part of the verb happens right here with the yo form. When you say, I ate lunch, you're going to say, repeat after me, almorcé, with a C, not a Z. And as you conjugate the verb and you move on down the line, you're going to have the Z showing up within the stem, right here. And it's still going to sound like a S. Repeat after me. Amorcé, amorzaste, amorzo, amorzamos, amorzasteis, amorzaron. Look, number 2, the verb sacar. The second verb is a car verb here, right? Okay? Now, what happens with sacar? In the yo form, you're going to see a mutation, a transformation, okay? Okay, so what's going to happen is that the C is going to turn into QU. And it's going to sound like ka sound. But the spelling is different, so that QU has to be emphasized. As you can see here, it's all in red. So that means you have to remember it. It's tricky. Repeat after me. Saqué, sacaste, sacó, sacamos, sacasteis, sacaron. Likewise, if you look at the verb pagar, it's a gone verb, alright? So what's going to happen here? To pay, pagar, sacar was to get, okay? Okay, so to get, like to get a grade, a good grade, okay? Almorzar, to eat lunch. Here with pagar, you're going to have the GU showing up in your form, and that's going to be, repeat after me, we're almost finished. Pagué, pagaste, pagó, pagamos, pagasteis, pagaron. Now here, what I have presented to you today is a general overview of the simple past in Spanish. The regular verbs, the irregular verbs, and the car, gar, and zal verbs, which also are irregular, but they're a little bit more technical. Okay? I hope that can help you out in any way. Thank you.